much noise.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I guess we'll get started. People will continue to join as we're on the call. Right now there are 5 of us. Although Ed just left, and I think he was having connection issues, so I expect he'll be back. And I'm sure more will be joining us as we go, just based on what I saw last week, where most people showed up about 5-10 minutes into the call. So, hi, Andrea, and hi, Melvin again. Melvin, you're still muted. I'm going to unmute you, and Andrea, I'm going to unmute you if you guys want to say hi. Andrea, I don't know where you are. Melvin, I know you're in the UK, of course.
Hi, I'm in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia.
Ah, very nice. Very nice.
Nice to see you all. Everyone looks healthy.
I hope everybody here is healthy. But even if they aren't healthy, you're still welcome on the call, of course. Great. Okay, so just a brief introduction, although we'll mention it again as more people come on. So Jason and I go back a long, long time. And Jason is most well known for Jibber Jobber, his website where, of course, you can talk much more about it, but his website for organizing job search and networking. And most recently, job search program, his job search course. And so we'll talk more. Yeah. Melvin, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
I can hear you, Jacob. Good evening.
Great. Good evening to you as well in the UK, over in Milton Keynes. Yeah. Terrific. Okay, so I'll just make it nice and easy, opening things up. Does anybody have an outstanding question, or did you guys, aside from Jason, of course, come to see what plays out here? Anybody with a question? Otherwise, I have questions lined up, and there'll be more as people come and go, of course.
Has anybody, sorry, this is Melvin in Milton Keynes in England.
Yep.
Does anybody have any news about folk that have got jobs in the past week?
Oh, that's a good question. Welcome back, Ed, and welcome, Ellen. Sorry. Andrea, were you about to say something?
No, well, is this a good time to be looking for a job? Or should it wait until we get back into the swing of things?
So that's also a good question. Melvin, just to answer your question first, I specifically do not know of someone that I heard of in the past week who found the job. Jason, anybody?
Yeah, I don't know anybody personally, but that I've talked to, but I have seen on Facebook, I'm connected to a lot of career coaches and resume writers, and there were 2 coaches, I believe, or maybe one resume writer and one coach, who both talked about clients landing jobs in the last week.
Cool.
I've also seen some really interesting articles, because it feels like the whole world stopped, right? Like
yeah.
Everything's shutting down, and you hear about furlough here, and it's just a real big mess. But at the same time, there are industries and spaces that are really ramping up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't thinking too much about that, because everybody's focusing on what's stopping and what you can't do. But if you need a job, there definitely are opportunities out there. And just to transition over to Andrea, is this a good time? I mean, a lot of people have to. Like, if you don't have a job right now, keep looking. Don't put your job search on pause. If you do have a job right now, I would say do everything you can to not lose it, right? To like don't go looking and even jump ship, because you never know if that other ship is sinking right now. So if things are stable-ish where you are, I would continue networking. I would continue doing job search stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily. I would be hesitant to jump from something that feels stable to more of an unknown.
Right, and I just want to add to that as well that there are definitely many companies hiring. It depends, of course, on what your industry is and what kind of job you're looking for. But many companies that they don't go bankrupt overnight. And so they may be ramping things down because they're sending people home temporarily, they hope. but in many cases, they still need work to be done to keep the company afloat. And so some people may have been switched from full-time to part-time, or companies may be looking for people who can fill in part-time. And so there's definitely opportunities for people in the gig economy, people who are freelancing, and companies are trying to figure that out. Another thing is that a lot of companies, they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to deal with people part-time. They don't know how to deal with people who are remote workers. And so if you have experience, even not too much experience, but if you have any experience remote working, then look for opportunities, look for companies and reach out to them and say, listen, I'm different from other people because I have done remote working before, and I can help you because I will be able to to hit the ground running more quickly than others. And I may be able to help you with your other employees who you're trying to figure out how to make them productive as remote workers. And so it really is a skill that's become super, super valuable as companies trying to figure this out. And again, the scary thing is that for everybody, job seekers, that's for companies as well. Nobody knows how long this is going to go on. This could be weeks, it could be months, it could be longer than a few months. And so if you do have remote work experience, then definitely hit that hard. And if you don't, then there are ways to try and get some remote work experience quickly by volunteering, by participating in other calls such as these, but being more interactive and being the one who's helping others and giving advice and so forth, and also joining projects where people are collaborating online, not necessarily over video, but online somehow. It could be through email, it could be through forums, working on projects with people remotely. And even with just 1 month of experience working with other people, that could be enough to convince someone that you can help them with that knowledge.
Do you think a lot of companies are going to be extra cautious about how long before they're on a recovery trajectory at all?
I think so.
Yeah.
I work with a SaaS company that sells software. It's a incentive software, rewards and stuff like that. So it's not like a mission critical. You know, it doesn't keep everything going, but it definitely helps like increase communication and increase cohesiveness and stuff like that. And it's interesting that in some industries, we have seen our prospects say, hey, let's put this conversation on hold. And we have no idea when we're going to pick this back up again. And in other industries or leaders who are saying, we know that our now remote workforce needs to be more in touch with one another in a positive way. So we want the peer recognition and management recognition system in place. Let's get that going right now. So I thought a couple weeks ago, oh man, everything in our pipeline is just going to freeze. And it's been interesting that we're still closing deals and we're still moving forward. So like Jacob said, business has to be done. Like not everybody's shutting down and just walking away forever. I think businesses are going to regroup. They're going to start thinking about, you know, what can my employees do right now in kind of a weird time? Because people who are working, right, they're on payroll, they're staring at the computer confused and in a daze. There's a lot of brain fog going on right now, just like job seekers, okay? But they happen to be getting a salary while they're in brain fog, so it seems a little bit unfair. But you know, if I were a manager, I would say, hey, you know what? I need you to stay productive. And I know there's a lot of unknowns right now, but I want you to start taking some courses and skilling up on, you know, these areas where you should have proficiencies, or get a new certification, or start learning a new thing. Like the smarter managers are looking at this time saying, how do I keep my team in place so that when things fire back up again, I have my team and it hasn't all fallen apart.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Melvin in England. We spoke about this during last week's call, and there is an organization called FutureLearn, FutureLearn, and FutureLearn.com is a learning site that offers short-term courses for 2, 3, 4 hours a session for 3 to 6 weeks maximum, and they are all free of charge. And they have professional courses, business courses. There's even a course on COVID-19, and they are provided by something in the region of 140 universities and business schools around the world. Don't take the paid for option. When you've finished, you can just do a screen dump to show that you've completed the course and then add that to your CPD list. Courses are excellent.
Yeah, that I do work for a company called Pluralsight. It's SIGHT, and they mostly do their audience is mostly programmers. But one of my colleagues has courses to do your PMP, and there's a business analyst certification. And so this is a great time for a lot of people to say, you know what, I've always wanted to get my PMP certification. Well, you can actually go to Pluralsight, get all the training for it for free. You probably could do that on FutureLearn also. There's a lot of online learning that's starting to open up for free right now. I can get you access to Pluralsight at no cost. Just email me at jason@jibberjobber.com. But there's a lot of opportunity for us right now to reskill. And like I said, in a few weeks, hopefully, a few months, hopefully not a few years, but sometime we're going to be back to work. And what a great opportunity we have right now to kind of treat this as a personal winter and just kind of get, nutrients back and rebuild ourselves so that when the spring comes along, we're ready.
Yeah.
Hello, Jason. Melvin in England. I didn't get that email address. Jake, would you be able to send it out if you do another transcript as you did last week, please?
Oh, I'll send it out either way. Not a problem. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and the one I mentioned was FutureLearn.com.
Mm-hmm.
FutureLearn.com.
Yeah, listen, I feel that this is a great time to build relationships and to show people what you can do by getting onto some of the industry sites that are available through LinkedIn and Facebook to really begin promoting yourself, because this is a great chance for people to get to know you and what it is you have to offer. And if you're on there saying, I've upskilled by doing this, why don't you guys do it? Then you're going to be putting yourself in a really strong position once this whole crisis comes to a conclusion. Be positive. If you're going to sit back with everybody else and feel glum and downbeat about things, then you're going to be one of the herd. You've got a chance now to be at the front of the herd if you put in that little bit of extra work.
Well, I think that's a great idea, and I want people to be careful. It's really tempting to go off and just spend all your time learning new stuff, and that's great. But if you're not practicing what you learn, then it's going to be hard to use it when the time comes, and to demonstrate that you actually have that skill and you've acquired that skill. And so definitely, whether it's on FutureLearn or Pluralsight or Udemy or Coursera or wherever you're going to get a free course from, as soon as possible, find ways to put it into action, put it into practice, preferably, again, collaborating somehow with other people. That way you can kill two birds with one stone. There are lots of, people who are familiar with the programming world know lots about open source software. These are massive projects. People work on them. In fact, remote work has been something usually that goes hand in hand with open source projects for decades now. And so it's possible to join a project. In fact, nowadays, a lot of the software people use on their computers without even realizing it, they're actually from open source projects, and people contribute to these things all the time. And so it's possible to just take a look around the software installing a computer, figure out which ones are open source, and just if there's a piece of software you enjoy using, go ahead and see how you can contribute to that project using a skill that you're interested in acquiring or have begun acquiring. And so definitely look for ways to use and practice as soon as possible any skills that you're planning on adding to your arsenal.
Jacob, one of the key things in terms of software that's out there for everyday folk is Microsoft Office and indeed Microsoft 365. And if you can upskill yourself during this time in those areas, then they're areas that you can also practice on. And that again is going to give you a head start. There are a lot of companies I know in the UK that are now beginning to use Microsoft 365. Not Office 365, it's an extension with extra capabilities for businesses. So if you can learn a bit of that, then that's really going to take you forward. And think about the other applications that are out there and what's going on and what you can do to improve yourself in those general areas that will make a difference when you get back into the job market. Think about areas such as lean management, Sigma 6.
Mm-hmm.
That really is a big plus over in the UK. And you can get introductory courses, get into that, starting to practice using role studies on there, and start building your CV of transferable skills.
Right. Well, I think there are a number of ways that you can figure out which pieces of software or which software skills are worth going deeper on. Nowadays, of course, you can look around your industry and see maybe there's software that you're familiar with from your job, but see who are the competitors for those tools, and perhaps go and learn them. There are websites that have directories of software with ratings that will tell you which is the most popular software in a specific industry, possibly even in a geographic location. I know I published an article on JobMob in 2018, I think, maybe it was even 2019, where I talked about the top software skills that were in demand, mainly in America at the time. And that was largely based on these directories. And of course, you can ask people that you know, whether even we're connected with on LinkedIn, for example, which kinds of skills, not just software skills, but which kinds of professional skills or tools they think are in demand or going to be in demand soon, and use that as something to hone up on. My brother actually works for a major tech company here in Israel, and about 8 months ago, his company said to him and said, listen, we would like you to retool, retrain for a new kind of technology, which nobody in the company was working on. They thought, for whatever reason, that it would be a good time to have someone do that, and he was the right place at the right time. And they said, okay, you go ahead and do it. And so just by that, he became the point man in the company, in this large company, for that specific kind of software. So yeah, that's only something. I mean, in his case, he was lucky. But if you're speaking to people on your network, you're going to start hearing similar stories about what's coming, what companies are about to adopt or have just begun to adopt, and those are skills that will help you. But I just want to reel it back a little bit. It depends also on how immediate your job search needs are. In other words, if you're looking for a job at the moment, then learning a skill that's going to be in the market 6 months from now, that's obviously not a good match. And so you've got to adapt. You've got to make sure that your job search makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish, of course, what your goals are in the short term.
Hey, can we go back to Andrea's question? I'm intrigued by the question. I want to get a little context. Andrea, if you're there and can unmute yourself. You asked is it a good time now to look for a job? Are you employed? What are you looking for? What are you seeing if you've done any job search activity?
Andrea, I'm going to unmute you. Is it okay? Or you can unmute yourself? Yeah, I'm going to unmute you. Nope, she's got to unmute herself. Nope, I'm not sure. Maybe she stepped away. She's not responding.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in if you are. I know people recently who have been bouncing around between jobs. They'll have a job for a few months and then something happens for whatever reason. And then they're in the job market again, and then and then they land something, and they just go in this hard cycle. I think that you should always look for a job, always. If you're the company president, I was actually general manager of a company, and I wouldn't look for another job, even though I should have, because I felt like I was being disloyal to my team that I was building, and I was coming in every day and hip hip hooray, and I was a cheerleader and trying to get everybody excited about this opportunity where we were, but I was not happy, and I should have been looking for a job. And when I got let go, this was back in 2006, it was the lesson for me that you never rest as a job seeker. And that's one of the most frustrating things I see with Jibber-Jobber users when they come to me and say, hey, landed a job, Jibber-Jobber was great, thank you, please delete my account. And I'm like, wait a minute, you want to delete all of the networking that you've done for the last few months? You want to delete names and numbers and email addresses and context, like communications that you've had with them. You want to wipe all that clean. They're like, yeah, I got my dream job and I'm good now. And, you know, months later, they'll come back and say, well, it wasn't actually my dream job and something happened. And what I've learned over the years is, you know, coronavirus or not, we need to be looking for a job.
I've got to sympathize with that because 14 years ago when I was due to be made redundant, I'd spent many years saying I must do my CV, I must look. And when you're in a job, you get lazy. And if you're working hours, it's perhaps the last thing you want to do at night. And admittedly, 14 years later on, I deeply regret not having spent the 14 years updating my CV and building up my job search skills. So I think it's typical of people today to not learn from that lesson, really.
Yeah. You know, it's like people have such a hard time saving money for down the road, right? It's all about now, or just next week type of thing. And I when I put myself in my shoes as an employee back when I used to work in a career job or a salary job, I mean, just like Nigel was just saying, like you get comfortable, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't like the job so much, but you're comfortable, and the job search was probably something that was more or less hard for you, and you're not looking forward to happening again. But the irony is that if you did do what you're just saying, Jason, then the next job search would not be as hard as the last one that you don't want to repeat.
Hard or long.
Yeah, exactly. Hard or long. And so it really is about keeping things warm and taking a little step every day, just like you should be saving a little bit of money every day for that rainy day. And then it won't be so rainy when it comes. Same thing, job search. If you were putting little steps every day, then the next time you have to switch, ideally, it'll have come to you. Someone will be trying to hire you away, or they'll be happy that you're finally available, as opposed to you having to go home with your head in your hands wondering, oh, what do I do now? And so there's no question it just takes a little bit of just every day putting in, but people, it's so hard to be disciplined. It really, really is.
I think the one thing a lot of people don't notice is that unlike a lot of things perhaps we do as IT people or as business people, it's not always obvious you're doing the right thing. People say, I've got the right sort of CV, I'm doing a search, I'm networking, but still nothing comes up. So it's not really, can't prove to yourself that doing what you think is the right thing or what seems sensible to you will actually do you any good, because it's if you've been in work for a long time, then it's a whole new generation of job searching.
You know what? This is one of the hardest things about job search. It's like it's the opposite of playing a video game. When you're playing a video game, everything is instantaneous. Everything you do has an immediate reaction. You know right away whether you made a mistake or not. And if you did make a mistake and your character dies, well, then you start over again. You just keep going, and you can do it 100 times until you finally get past a certain level or whatever. Job search is completely the other direction. You could be doing all the right things, following all the advice that people are giving you, and for whatever reason, you're still not getting the result. It may not be your fault, but you just can't tell. You can't tell. You're not getting that feedback. There's no feedback loop. And so it just becomes more and more frustrating, and people don't understand why you're not succeeding, and you don't understand why. It's it really is. It's something that there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. I've seen people, phenomenal people, show up to an interview, and just because they were a little bit too nervous, they just rubbed one interviewer a little bit the wrong way, and that was all it took. That was all it took. And that company, that's a loss for the company, because they would have been over the hill. I mean, just super happy to have that person on board, but they got the wrong impression because of something that happened that took a split second or just a minute, and threw them for a loop. And that's it's just a shame. It's a shame, but it happens all the time. It happens all the time.
So Nigel, if you could turn back 14 years ago, and by the way, 14 years ago is when I started Jibber Jobber. That's when I got laid off, and I've worked from home mostly for that time, except for a 10-month window where I drove 22 miles each way to commute to a job. And I was going to do work when I got home, but I was exhausted. I'd come home, sit at my computer, and just stare at it. And I know the exhaustion you're talking about, but if you could turn back 14 years ago, what would be some of the things that you would do to, you know, that daily or weekly stuff to prepare yourself for a future job search?
Well, I think the obvious thing is just to say, keep your CV up to date at least every 3 months. That's for, if you're not experienced at doing any job searching, then the first thing you really hate to do and can find difficult is actually the CV. And the other thing, of course, is keeping your network warm. That's the vital phrase that I hear from everyone these days, but it's the sort of thing that everyone says, oh, that they don't do really. We're very lazy about, although we network around the office and perhaps with our friends, we don't really network around the wider communities. And I think a lot of people regret that as well. So that's just two of the things. The other thing, of course, is just knowing the experts, because the experts come and go, don't they, over 14 years. And when I was last job hunting, that was before when the internet was being rolled out. So LinkedIn and all that was not around. So not just 14 years, but 29 years ago when I got my job, that's how different things are. And the whole idea of networking on LinkedIn and all that sort of thing is the sort of thing you have to be familiar with, how technology is used. So there are an increasing number of things, even strange things like using Twitter, which is incredibly odd. You don't really have proper conversations on that. So there's lots of things that come and go like that. So it's keeping abreast of technology as well. Those are the three things, I think.
Okay. I agree with all of those. And actually, as we're talking, I'm jotting down ideas that'll be future blog posts that I'll write. You know, how do you keep your network warm when you're working? And I think there's some great things that you can do consistently over time so that in 4 years or 14 years, you don't find yourself without a network. Because that's where I found myself. I should have been going to local networking events and industry networking events, but I kept saying, well, I'm the CEO. I got to be here in the office working with my people. And I completely avoided networking. And it was a disservice to my company, and it was a disservice to my career.
Didn't your company expect you to go to networking events at all?
We were a very small company, kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And when I became the general manager, we had a lot of challenges to work on that left the idea of networking way off in the future.
Well, we used to have an online networking tool, which was actually, we customized it as C3 Connect, Communicate, and something else that we were using, a bit like an internal version of LinkedIn. But we used to use FaceTime as well, so we were actually rolling out those sort of tools. They were literally so popular, I often wondered what the real return on the investment was. But obviously now I can actually see you're making connections in many ways.
Yeah. Yep.
Just want to say a quick
okay,
hi
can
to
I come in with a
Miriam and to
suggestion,
Dee.
folks?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I've done over here in Milton Keynes is to create a local networking directory, and it's 32 pages long, and it lists all of the business network meetings and groups that exist in and around Milton Keynes. We list the details of the name of the group, the organizer, contact email, where they meet, when they meet, and the price of attending. And I think that we're probably the networking capital of Europe with so many groups in the area. But here's the thing, that networking directory is seen by so many people because we feature it on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on our website, that we are known because of it. So if you get onto places like Eventbrite and check on your local groups, you'll find that you can create that similar sort of directory and become the come-to person. If you're that come-to or go-to person, then you're going to build up that network even faster because they will know you as the organizers of the group and they'll be able to share your information on.
Yeah.
Takes about 3 hours to put together.
When I've seen directories like this, in Minneapolis, there's a directory that I think was 27 pages, small print. It was phenomenal. There was tons of networking in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities area. And the person who created that document was known by everybody who did networking in the area because their name was on the bottom of every single page.
There you go, Jason. And listen, this doesn't take long to do. So any of you are out there, build it up for the local area that you exist in. And you can always get in touch with your local Chamber of Commerce or business association in that area. And you can get the information from them if you can't find it on Eventbrite or Meeting Place or whatever other software you get to use in your area. But become the go-to person and you'll find it much easier.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to cut it short. I think that's a half an hour. And so I want to keep it short and sweet. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to thank Jason as my co-host. Jason Alba of Jibber and of the jobsearchprogram.com. That's the jobsearchprogram.com. But I will send out his email address as mentioned earlier in the call. People can reach out to him if they want. And just stay safe, stay healthy, call someone who's stuck at home alone in isolation. And yeah, we'll probably do this all again maybe next week. Thanks again for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
I'd be happy for you to share my email address with anybody out there if they feel that it would be of help and vice versa.
Okay. Thanks, Melvin. Good night.
Have a great evening. God bless. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for your time and have a good night.
A pleasure. You too.